There are some incredible tributes being put out into the world following the loss of Rob and Michelle Reiner in December 2025. In particular, for us film nerds, focusing on the incredible directorial run that Rob Reiner enjoyed in the 1980s and 90s in particular. However, this story isn't about this. This story it just goes to the heart of why Rob Reiner really was a class act, an absolute class act. And it's what happens when you've made your absolute worst film. Let's dig into that story.
Stories. We would be honored if you would join us.
I mean, as a directorial debut, 1984's This in Spinal Tap is a masterpiece. And then you have a run that goes the short thing, people up and down on that, but that 5 in a row. Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men. 5 flat out, 5-star films really, in a row. Few Good Men, maybe a 4, I don't know. But there's Oscars, there's box office, there's just a mix of genre. And I mean, an incredible achievement. But not a lot of focus is put on the film that broke that, which is 1994's North. Now, North is a film that was written by Alan Zweibel and Andrew Scheinman. That it was based on Zweibel's novel, directed by Rob Reiner, and stars Elijah Wood basically as this kid who's fed up with his parents and goes looking for new parents. There are many reasons why North is not a very good film. And I mean, one of which is, well, Bruce Willis takes on this really odd role where he's almost like this weird guardian angel. And I remember when North was coming out, this picture of Bruce Willis in a pink rabbit suit. It's just like, what on earth is going on there? And I mean, it's not the only odd thing. I mean, I should note that North has one of the worst pieces of product placement and paid advertising, I assume they've paid, in the midst of a movie where Willis at one point turns up as a FedEx driver in this clip.
Some kind of guardian angel?
Well, I guess you can say that. Because in a manner of speaking, we at Federal Express feel that we are guardians. Guardians of your most important packages.
Going back to the film, one of the reasons that it entered infamy was a review by the late Roger Ebert. And I'm assuming most of you know just what an important critic Roger Ebert was. And of all the reviews that Ebert wrote of movies in the 1990s, and he wrote hundreds, if not thousands of them, his review for North was particularly damning. And he wrote, I mean, no way around it. Let's go. I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it. Hated the sensibility that thought anyone would like it. Hated the implied insult to the audience by its belief that anyone would be entertained by it. And, I mean, in terms of reviews, that's as bad as you can possibly get. And what's fascinating about this is how the creatives involved in the film responded to it. So Alan Zweibel, the writer of the novel, co-writer of the screenplay, after Roger Ebert passed, Ebert published a book of his most hostile reviews with "I hated this movie," basically as the title, off the back of his writing about the film North. But when Roger Ebert died, Alan Zweibel penned a piece in The New Yorker where he talked about the aftermath of that review and his ultimate meeting with Roger Ebert. And to quote that article, he talked about how friends called up to express their sympathies and said to him, it's like Ebert stuck 2 thumbs up your ass and then had a tug of war with himself. Talks about talks about friends and families. So Robbie, who came home from the neighbourhood supermarket we'd been shopping at for years, and said, I'm wondering if maybe we should order in for a while. His son, Adam, who grew tired of defending his dad to his LA classmates, asked if I'd be offended if he changed his last name to Sorkin. I mean, there's damning. I interviewed Philip Noyce, director of Clear and Present Danger, Dead Calm, Sliver, which is relevant to this, a year or two ago. And Philip Noyce had this thing where his daughter would watch his films for him and let him know her thoughts ahead of the release of them. And so when he'd made Sliver, his daughter watched it, and Sliver's not a great film. And his daughter said, "Oh, book your next job before this film comes out." When Clear and Present Danger comes out, Philip Noyce's daughter watches the film and just says, "No, you'll be fine. Let it come out, then go and book your next job." In the case of Alan Zweibel's son, it's just like, Change your last name to Sorkin. Ouch. In March 2006, Weeble wrote, and this was over a decade after North came out. North came out in 1994. Zweibel finally crossed paths with Roger Ebert. Never seen him since he'd written that review. And he was in a Chicago restaurant. And Zweibel wrote in the New Yorker about how he went up to Ebert and said, Roger, I heard myself say as we were both exiting, yes, he answered. A beat of silence, wrote Zweibel, one that he appeared to be using to figure out where he may have known my face, and one that I used to figure out what I was going to say next. It was clearly my turn to talk some 12 years after that review. Alan Zweibel, I said, another beat of silence, one that he appeared to be using to tighten every muscle in his body. And a silence I broke by saying, and I just have to tell you, Roger, that sweater you're wearing, I hate that sweater. Isn't that a lovely way to respond? So we come back to Rob Reiner, and North was a big box office failure. It was a critical bonfire, the most savaged film of his directorial career. So how does Rob Reiner deal with that? How does he react to it? Well, with all copyrights acknowledged, here's him on stage at Comedy Central Roast in the year 2000. This is how you deal with your worst filmmaking moment.
I do have a bone to pick with you, pardon the expression. And that is, you remember the movie North, which we know people have mentioned.
Yes, and I'll bet you're about to make fun of that as well.
Steel trap in mind, I'm telling you. Damn. Well, the reason, but I have a legitimate reason,
okay.
A legitimate grievance, and I think you know what it is.
Oh, yes, you're in the movie.
That's right.
That's right.
So what I did was, I went on the internet, and I got some reviews from North. And this is Roger Ebert, look it up.
He's fatter than I am.
Roger Ebert. North is one of the most unpleasant, contrived, artificial, cloying experiences I've had at the movies. Well, this is from a guy who's seen 200,000 movies. Okay?
He's nitpicking.
He's nitpicking. What? You come up here and read this right. Paragraph.
Wait, I need glasses for this. Hold on. Which one? Which paragraph?
Just read
the
this,
one with the star. Okay.
And this is legitimate, right?
Yeah, no. This is Roger Ebert. It's taken off the internet.
Read this paragraph.
Okay. All right. I hated this movie. hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant, audience-insulting moment of it. Hated the sensibility that thought anyone would like it. Hated the implied insult to the audience by its belief that anyone would be entertained by it. Well, I thought those, if you read between the lines, it's not that bad.
I love that. I think that is such a classy way to respond to it. And I mean, notwithstanding the amazing films that he made, to be able to stand on a stage 6 years after he'd been savage with this review that just keeps being quoted at him and make fun of it and accept it and own it, my absolute admiration and respect. There was a school of thought that in the aftermath of making North, that, Rob Reiner's directorial career had peaked. And I won't have it, because the year after he made arguably his most underrated film, I think, The American President, which itself was the precursor to The West Wing, written by Aaron Sorkin, who'd written A Few Good Men for Rob Reiner as well. And I think The American President is a great film. The year after, he does Ghosts of Mississippi. James Woods gets an Oscar nomination. He does The Story of Us. He has a hit with that. He has a hit with the Kevin Costner headline, Rumor Has It, as well. And then the bucket list is a phrase that comes into our lexicon off the back of his 2007 movie with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. Just months before he passed, he was back on the road promoting his latest film as director, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. It is a flat-out tragedy, not just for the horrific way that Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner's lives came to an end, but also that we don't get to see any more of their work. Rob Reiner has been a hugely important filmmaker in my own life, but the shelves behind me are groaning under the weight of this, many of which are films that he was involved with, that he directed, that he acted in, and so many favourites there. But on his worst day as a filmmaker, on the day where he's made a film that could have sunk a career, he stands up, he owns it, and proves himself just a class above. Rest in peace, Rob Reiner. I might just go and watch North again.